What's up, y'all? My name is Ray. If you're here for the first time, welcome. And to my returning viewers, I am humbled to welcome you back for another video. Guys, if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider doing so. It's pretty cool. You'll make my day. All right, let's talk a little bit more about the right wing's war on public education and why winning that war is so important for all of us. Let's start with a recent headline grabbing attack from the right, led by Governor Ron DeSantis and the Florida Department of Education against a high school advanced placement course called African American Studies. The Florida Department of Education, FDOE, rejected the course curriculum in a letter sent to the College Board in January. If you're not familiar with the College Board, they manage and administer the SAT and high school advanced placement level courses throughout the country, and they had announced the new, first of its kind African American Studies course in early 2022. Cheyenne Daniels described the course in an article for The Hill in September 2022, writing that, quote, the class will be interdisciplinary, meaning students won't just learn history, but also geography, literature, art, music, politics, and film to provide a comprehensive view of the African American experience, unquote. In the same article, Daniels foreshadowed the battle to come when she wrote that, quote, the program comes at a time when education has become increasingly politicized, particularly curriculums that deal with issues such as racial injustice and African American history. Some have argued that such a course could serve as a framework for educators to teach critical race theory, which posits that race and racism have been rooted in American law and institutions since slavery and Jim Crow. Well, sure enough, come January 2023, and the FDOE says they're rejecting the course because it is, quote, inexplicably contrary to Florida law and significantly lacks educational value, unquote. The FDOE specifically cited 6 areas of concern in the course curriculum, notably the movement for Black lives, Black feminism, queer studies, and reparations, while singling out a number of individual authors for rejection as well, claiming that the course violates the so-called Stop Woke Act that DeSantis signed last year. Leslie K. Jones, one of the authors singled out for rejection by the FDOE, described the situation for CNN, writing, quote, the Stop Woke Act prohibits teaching multiple concepts purportedly related to race and identity, none of which are espoused either by African American studies or the oft-targeted academic field of critical race theory, or CRT. In particular, the idea that, quote, members of one race, color, national origin, or sex are morally superior, unquote, is not a claim made by any of the foundational critical race theory texts that the DeSantis administration has targeted for censorship. Nor does CRT as a field argue that any individual or group is inherently racist. African American studies is a rigorous scholarly response to real political arguments made in the public sphere, from foundational government documents to majority court opinions to popular political rallies, which demonstrate that race operates as a hierarchy in American social life. As a result, it often challenges the ideology that race is a natural, instinctive way to understand human difference. Without the veneer of nature, it is much harder to deny the ways that specific political ideologies create very different social and economic conditions for different categories of people. Lying about these theories, as the state of Florida has done, allows conservative ideologues to couch censorship within the language of an objective morality, unquote. Well, flash forward a couple of weeks, and DeSantis' plan succeeded, as Anamona Hartokoulis and Eliza Fawcett wrote for the New York Times, quote, after heavy criticism from Governor Ron DeSantis, the College Board released an official curriculum for its new advanced placement course in African American Studies, stripped of much of the subject matter that had angered the governor and other conservatives. The College Board purged the names of many Black writers and scholars associated with critical race theory, the queer experience, and Black feminism. It ushered out some politically fraught topics like Black Lives Matter from the formal curriculum, and it added something new. Black conservatism was now offered as an idea for a research project. Writing for the Heckinger Report, Nicole Tucker Smith criticized the College Board's decision to, quote, buckle under political pressure and strip their APAAS course of essential topics for what is supposed to be a rigorous college level course, unquote. before justifiably asking, quote, how can the study of Black Lives Matter, one of the most impactful civil rights movements of the 21st century, which sparked protests around the world, be considered optional when studying the African American experience? The Southern Poverty Law Center, SPLC, didn't mince words when they released the following statement. Quote, we are deeply disappointed that Governor Ron DeSantis' relentless pursuit of a dangerous anti-Black and anti-LGBTQ plus agenda continues to undermine our public school system. Florida has become a litmus test to determine the extent to which the nation will allow white supremacist ideology to infect our schools. Our students, nation, and democracy lose when politicians are allowed to invade the province of academia and alter coursework and reading lists. We cannot afford for academic gatekeepers like the College Board to falter in the face of such tyranny. And we cannot allow academic integrity to be eroded by the same political tides that history teaches us led to the greatest human atrocities ever recorded and that are reflected in present day injustices. Too much is at stake. Unquote. Over 800 higher education faculty and members of academia signed an open letter in defense of the APAAS curriculum and fiercely criticized DeSantis' actions. Quote, this is censorship and a frontal attack on academic freedom. We categorically reject DeSantis' autocratic claim to knowing what college level material should be available in an AP African American Studies course. Contrary to DeSantis' claim of promoting freedom in education, he is suppressing learning in his state and limiting the freedom of Florida students to choose what they can learn. He is destroying core educational principles that should be sacrosanct to all leaders in a democratic society. We will not mince words. The contention that an AP curriculum in African American studies, quote, lacks educational value is a proposition supported by white supremacist ideology because it fundamentally demeans the history, culture, and contributions of Black people. This has terrible consequences for the young people of color who live in that state. It echoes other ongoing efforts across the United States to purge the public sphere of any mention of divisive concepts or any conversation about the enduring fact of racism in this nation, this hemisphere, and indeed this world. Unsurprisingly, the College Board denied having caved to outside influence and insists that the curriculum changes are not the result of political pressure. Plenty of critics, myself included, think that's a load of BS, and the leaked communications between the College Board and FDOE suggest that we are correct to do so. Now, I want to be clear that I'll stop well short of claiming that the College Board is inherently nefarious or genuinely sympathetic to right wing bigotry, but I do think in this situation they acted very poorly and naively. The College Board is now in full-on damage control mode, releasing a letter as I was filming this video in which they admit their failure to not immediately denounce Ron DeSantis' vocal rejection of the new course, quote, betrayed Black scholars everywhere, unquote. But as appropriate as that sentiment may be, it comes too late to undo the damage done. At the same time that DeSantis and the FDOE were attacking the APAAS curriculum, they were also engaged in a hostile takeover of a small Florida university that the New York Times called the most progressive public college in the state. New College of Florida is a school of about 700 students, and the DeSantis administration surprised the institution with 6 brand new right wing puppet members to their board of trustees who immediately voted to remove the university president and implement sweeping changes to the school. Right wing media loved this, of course. An article for Revolver titled Total Victory DeSantis' New Florida College Triumph is the blueprint for recapturing woke institutions across the country celebrated the APAAS rejection, boasting that, quote, rather than fight DeSantis, the College Board almost immediately surrendered, unquote, and had a field day describing the situation with New College of Florida. Quote, the school is a national news story because DeSantis' administration is demonstrating that zombie left-wing institutions do not have to live forever. They can be torn down and remade or defunded if only there is sufficient will to act, unquote. Christopher Rufo, a conservative activist and now appointee to the New College of Florida board, released a statement on his intent to, quote, abolish diversity, equity, and inclusion programs and replace them with equality, merit, and color blindness, unquote. Basically, they're choosing indoctrination over education and they're damn proud of it. This is very clearly, as Revolver put it, a test run executed against a small and obscure school with little institutional power to resist, unquote. New College of Florida may be small, but the blow being struck in this ideological struggle could be huge, because as Vanity Fair puts it, quote, Ron DeSantis' New College takeover is just the beginning of the right's higher education crusade, unquote. Well, so far this has all been awful, so let's take a minute and look at one of the return volleys fired by the good guys in this war on education. In early February, to align with Black History Month, U.S. Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey and U.S. Representative Jamal Bowman of New York's 16th District reintroduced the African American History Act. Cory Booker spoke of the initiative thusly, quote, the story of black people in America is inextricably linked to the story of America. The fullness of this rich history must be told, both its dark chapters and the light brought by generations of people determined to overcome and make our country better through an ongoing quest for justice. As we begin Black History Month, I am proud to reintroduce this legislation that will invest in initiatives to make African American history education programs more accessible to the public, help educators incorporate those programs into their curriculum, and develop additional resources focused on Black history for students and families to engage with, unquote. The legislation, supported by over 100 congressional co-signers, invests $10 million over 5 years in the National Museum of African American History and Culture to support African American history education programs in a variety of ways, which you can read more about in the links that I'll leave in the video description. Okay, I wanted to make sure we squeezed in something positive and highlighted some of the good work being done out there to fight back against the right wing's increasingly brazen assaults on history and public education. So, why is this so important for all of us anyway? Like, say you don't have kids or your kids are grown already. Why should you care? Why should any of us care about a high school course in African American studies or a small university in Florida or a relatively minor piece of legislation? Why is this so important? Well, let me start with a quote from President Abraham Lincoln. The philosophy of the schoolroom in one generation will be the philosophy of government in the next. What a profound sentiment. Let's think on this for a minute. The philosophy of today's classroom will be reflected in tomorrow's government. Because it's not just about what kids are taught, it's about how they're taught, right? It's about the lens through which they learn to view and critique the world. These are the factors that will shape our future as these young people grow into the change agents of society. And in order for us to position these young people to carry us forward rather than backward, they need to be given every opportunity to learn the complex and often ugly truth of history. No whitewashed, sterilized version of history education will ever inspire the same caliber of personal development that an accurate, complex, and critical one will. And on that note, listen to these words from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Quote, the function of education is to teach one to think intensively and to think critically. Intelligence plus character, that is the goal of true education, unquote. Intelligence plus character. What wise words from one of the most influential and inspirational figures in American history. The goal of public education is and ought to be to produce critical thinkers of strong character. We're all better off living in a world filled with those kinds of people, with people for whom education has been a complex and intriguing journey rather than a stamp of state approved indoctrination. Regardless of your socioeconomic status, regardless of what you do for a living, whether you work construction or law or food service or academia, we all benefit from being surrounded by people who have been empowered to think critically and to intellectually empathize with people from different backgrounds and experiences. Not everyone is going to be a scholar, obviously, but every American citizen deserves to be taught a complex, nuanced, and factually accurate summary of world history as part of their education. And those students who show particular aptitude or affinity for scholarship need to be empowered and encouraged to pursue truly challenging and critical curriculums like the AP African American Studies course that's been attacked and now largely sterilized by right wing government intervention. It's no exaggeration to say that this is a battle for the soul of our country, Because to paraphrase Lincoln's earlier contribution, how and what we teach American children today will determine what kind of America we live in tomorrow. And with that, I'll wrap things up for today, guys. If you've hung out with me this long, I really appreciate it. If you liked this content and want to see more, leave a thumbs up on the video. Leave me some thoughts and feedback in the comments or just say hi. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider doing so. It's really cool. You'll make my day. Thanks again for being here. I hope I see y'all again soon. Peace out.